Welcome everyone back to Woven Wings Live, where we bring you wisdom and tools for vibrant living. I'm Gabe Crane, and I'm joined by my co-host Rahul Didwania. And if you enjoy listening to us, please share with a friend or leave us a review wherever you listen to podcasts. You can also join our newsletter, which is linked in the show description, to follow along on the journey. And our episode today is going to be a fun one. The title of it is The Fun Habit, Pursuing Joy and Wonder. What is fun? And can you just orient us around that basic concept as we get started on this journey?
Yeah, absolutely. I think as far as LA definition goes, it's just, are you finding pleasure in what you do, right? So many folks, as you kind of alluded to, aren't. And we know that there is some interesting consequence because of that. So it's clear, especially in the modern era, that a lot of us are fun starved, right? And so there are a lot of reasons for that, and I'm sure we'll get into the ones that you find are important. But what we found is that as adults, especially in this world where so much information is coming at us all the time, and certainly there's a level of complexity that didn't exist in previous eras, a lot of folks just aren't enjoying themselves, whether that be at work, whether that be because, leisure has sort of been eroded, especially with regards to, the North American lifestyle. What you bring up is really important, right? I mean, it kind of goes back, we'll bounce around versus enjoying sort of casual activities, and the fact that when you bank your entire sort of leisure experience to these once a year escapes, the risk involved in that, right? Like, let's say you end up going to Maui the whole time it rains and you're really outcome focused rather than relishing in the fact that you get to enjoy the company of your loved ones. So absolutely, I think where you see, especially countries in the EU doing it better, is one, you have more access to that. But two, I think there's this frame that Europeans and folks from Oceania, quite frankly, all across the globe have, is some empathy for their fellow workers. I think we're using that to juxtapose sort of, some of the issues with what we call leisure, right? Just to define that construct. But you're absolutely right. Leisure should be integrated into your day-to-day. And fun doesn't necessarily need to pair with leisure. You can have fun at work, but leisure becomes important in context because generally you have more control over how you can spend your leisure time. Different tools depending on where you're at, but one, being aware of what you're doing. And then two, if you're really not finding joy in any of those things, trying to unpack why that is. Is it a mindset issue that just you've kind of been mind wandering throughout your week, because you're not finding, you're not connected to the things that you're doing? And is there a way to simply just change that? Like, I'm going to be more mindful about that dessert I eat instead of shoving it down my throat. I'm going to actually remind myself that I like chocolate and that this is, a treat and something that I should enjoy. Let's start with, with regards to the folks that you're coaching, right? A lot of us are trying to figure out what are things that we can do for our own betterment. And so let's say you have, a goal of exercising more. And so that's where I think the construct tactically of looking at fun being helpful really is important, right? So someone might pick up a Huberman podcast and grab his prescription and think this is the only way, that I can get healthy, because they haven't done further due diligence. Or again, they've kind of lost the sight that they have some control over how exercise takes place. Giving yourself some grace, right? Because it's so certainly we've been socially conditioned for each person, it might have a different slant, right? But, we've been raised to believe that time is equated to money. And so somehow if we're sort of wasting time, that we're, literally money's flying out of our pockets, which is unfortunate. There's the trappings of meritocracy where we're kind of taught to, mortgage the time that we have now for some future reward. And again, we've kind of unpacked the folly of that. I mean, it's really about habituated behavior, right? And so, we kind of get in this mode and we do the things that we do. They get monotonous, but we keep doing them. There's a gender slant, but a lot of folks also feel like, during a certain season of their life, it's really has to be serving others, not realizing that if they're not enjoying themselves, ultimately their will and empathy to serve others is finally going to get depleted. For me, it's been interesting too. I get lumped in with a lot of folks that study play, and these folks are very vibrant. They were attracted to that discipline because they're always on, right? Coaches that use like Lego Serious Play, and actually a lot of them are my friends. Gary Ware is this amazing guy, again, goes to improv class, and but these folks have so much energy, and that's not me, right? I'm kind of a nerd that likes to read a lot, right? I think anyone that is in a place like yourself, some of the work might be, kind of playing with the memento mori, right? Like, okay, I've really got it dialed in. So what is it that I want my legacy to be? And what are the memories that are going to really serve me, so that when I look back at my life, I'm going to be like, yes, I'm just glad that I did that, right? For most people, it's really going to be, reintroducing to themselves the way that they've habituated their time, right? And so, it's not the funnest step, but the first step's really, just to audit the 168 hours in your week. That's not a ton of time, right? And just look at, maybe just look at your schedule. Maybe, you do write it down. That's what I suggest, but that is an exercise. One of the things where I potentially left a gap is that how important simple pleasures are, right? We've kind of talked about adventure and the idea that, living a life that's a mosaic or a tapestry, whatever metaphor works best for you, is important for a whole host of reasons. I didn't want to continue to geek out on the science, but we know that neuroplasticity really comes from having a vibrant, memory bank of different things. And so that curiosity, enjoying, things at different levels, becomes important in context. There's this concept called mind wandering, for folks that are familiar with Matthew Killingsworth and Dan Gilbert's work. Like the idea, circling back on some of your fears of, if we're not present, even, finding, small joys in what we do, that really can sort of perpetuate, this idea that life is passing us by, when we live, kind of in the hamster wheel.